Hello, friend, and welcome to my channel. I'm Lindsay from Flourishing Mama, and this is week 5 of our Proverbs 31 Bible study. Today we have come to Proverbs chapter 31, verse 16. And before we start, I'm going to tell you that I did find this week's verse to be really convicting to me personally. And when you read it, you're going to kind of think, why would that be convicting? But as we get into the meaning behind this verse, maybe it will be powerful for you too. The verse says, "She considereth a field and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hands she planteth a vineyard." Now, I don't know about you, but I have personally never bought property on my own, and I have never planted a vineyard. I have tried planting a garden a few times, and it has always been a disaster. I do not have a green thumb, and I'm a failure at gardening. So when I read these verses, I would think, if I was taking them literally, that I have failed at being a virtuous woman. But as we get into them a little bit, we'll see that that's not exactly what they mean. The word that really stands out to me when I am reading this verse is the word considereth. And so when we think about considering, that means this virtuous woman, whenever she is going out to buy something, especially something large like a piece of property, she makes a very careful decision. She doesn't do things on a whim. So when I think about that in my own personal life, the words impulse buy comes to my mind, or an impulse purchase. And we've all made them, and it's something that we struggle with. We all have something that we know that we struggle to say no to. And it is made a lot easier in our current culture because we have so many influencers and buy now links and buy now, pay later, even, and it makes everything so easy. And so we have things that we may struggle to say no to. For me, it's coffee mugs. I love coffee and I love drinking it out of a cute coffee mug, and I don't have room for any more, but whenever I see a cute one, I have a really hard time saying no to it. So I just ask you to take a second and think, when was the last time that you maybe made an impulse purchase? Maybe for you, it's every time you have to go to town, you feel like you need an iced coffee. Or maybe you get lured into the Target dollar spot and you just can't say no. So those seem like little things when we see them just on the surface. So what? I spent $30 in the Target dollar spot. But when you start to add all of those things together, you may be able to see that there is a pattern. Do you have an attitude of discontentment in your life that causes you to not consider the long-term consequences of the things that you buy? And sometimes it is financial consequences. Sometimes it's consequences in your home of, where am I going to store these things? How am I going to take care of these things? I have to dust all of these things. I have to wash all of these things. And so sometimes when we get in an impulse buying kind of attitude, we don't take the time to consider that. And it also can be true when it comes to long-term purchases, because there are so many options now for going into debt to buy these things that we don't even need, and maybe we haven't considered the long-term consequences. If you think, oh, I'm going to pay, $6.75 a week for 6 weeks, to buy this, and that seems, like something small at the time, but 6 weeks from now, that thing that you bought is broken, or you don't like it as well as you thought you did, or you ripped a hole in your new shirt and you're still making those payments. It reminds me of Dave Ramsey's popular saying that you're spending money you don't have on things you don't need to impress people you don't like. And that's so true, because we do live in a culture where living paycheck to paycheck and making a car payment or making minimum credit card payments is just accepted as a rite of passage. This is a way of life. This is how it's always going to be. Unfortunately, the Bible principles do not line up with that line of thought. And a virtuous woman does not get herself into that place. When we see the next phrase where it says, with the fruit of her hands. That indicates that she is doing what she's doing, the purchases that she's making. She's using the money she already has on hand to purchase these things. She's not going into debt. She's not signing up for, 12 easy payments. She is being wise and taking care of her money. The Bible says, moreover, it is required in stewards that a man be found faithful. And a steward is a person who takes care of property for another person. And you and I are stewards of our homes. We're stewards of our money. And when we use that money foolishly, we are not following God's plan for what it means to be a virtuous woman, because this virtuous woman is someone who considers, she thinks ahead. If I buy this product that I feel like I need right now because this influencer told me that this machine makes the best ice cream and I need it right now. My kids need ice cream every day. I need ice cream every day. I'm purchasing this machine. So you get it and it's $250 and you're making these payments. Well, all of a sudden it's Christmas time and your budget is tight and you really could use that extra $50, but you're having to give it now to pay for something that you really didn't need. But if you sit down and take all of that into consideration in the beginning, you may realize, this thing that I feel like I need right now, it's not worth the long-term consequences of having it. And that is true about a lot of things that don't even involve money. A lot of times we look at things in our lives and we think, I need this. I want this kind of life. I want this kind of house. I want this kind of, this kind of car, whatever it may be. And then we step outside of the parameters of what we can afford or what we need or what we have room for. And a lot of times we're doing it to impress people that don't even matter. So this week, as we're moving into the new week, I want to encourage you first to think about something that you personally struggle with saying no to, even if it is something really small that you feel like you have to have it. And I'm not saying that you should never reward yourself, that you should never have a treat, but there are some things that we all tend to go overboard with. And I've already told you, mine is coffee mugs. I have a problem with coffee mugs and I don't have any more room for them, and somehow I continue to buy them. But what if I were to, every time I get ready to buy a new one, I think, okay, I'm gonna have to get rid of an old one before I can get a new one. Then I might, change my tune a little bit. Maybe you like to go to Starbucks 3 times a week. And so you're spending money on Starbucks 3 times a week. But what if instead of doing that, you could have, pizza with your family 1 night a week? I just want you to consider the trade-offs that you make when you don't consider things long term. And then ask the Lord to help you to consider the things that do matter. Be like this virtuous woman who considers, and ask Him to help you consider the things that matter, to stop making impulse purchases or to stop buying things you don't need. And I'm telling you, as I was reading this and studying this passage, it was painful for me to think about the ways that I have not done this. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir on this one. This is a lesson that I myself need to learn. So I think as we are going through these verses, one thing that I have really realized is a lot of times I have considered that the virtuous woman, that it is an attitude that she has. She is special and she's righteous and she's holy. But being a virtuous woman actually involves a lot of action. It is things that she does, and she makes wise decisions on behalf of her family. And that is what you and I need in our lives, is to consider God, consider our husbands, consider our families, and make these wise decisions that last for eternity. These things that we are doing now as we're bringing up our families, a lot of our decisions will last for eternity, and they will impact our kids and our homes for eternity. And it is something serious that we need to consider. I hope that you are enjoying this Proverbs 31 Bible study, and I will be back next week. See you then.